looking at the list of guys that could have made it over Scott Rolen, the fact that Jeff Kent, one of the greatest second basemen in Major League history, only finished his final year on the ballot with 46.5 votes is despicable. Absolutely despicable. And I don't care if the writers didn't like him. I don't care if he was a mean player and the fans hated him, which a lot of fans didn't. I don't care that him and Barry Bonds hated each other. This guy never did steroids, never cheated, never did anything off the field that could get him in trouble with drugs, domestic violence, or any of that. This man went out there every single week in almost 14 years of playing and did it right. How is this guy not a first ballot Hall of Famer? It doesn't make any sense. He's been on the ballot and he's never gotten over 50%. Scott Rolen was a good defensive player. Okay offensive player. 282 home runs. He is not a 300 hitter. He's not Alex Rodriguez, who was a career 299 hitter, or Derek Jeter was a career 300 hitter. He's not one of those guys. Scott Rolen was a great defensive player. Does he deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? Maybe. Not this quick. I do believe Billy Wagner is a Hall of Famer. 10-year span, he was one of the best relief pitchers in baseball. Dominant left-handed pitcher. He will be in the Hall of Fame next year. There's no question. But there's no reason why Scott Rolen is going to the Hall of Fame before Billy Wagner. Andruw Jones is one of the greatest center fielders in Major League history. Some people would argue he could be. This guy ended up this year with 58.1% of the votes. What did Andruw Jones do? There is no proof that he did steroids. This guy had a long career with Atlanta. He played for the Yankees. He played for a bunch of teams, but for almost 12 years he played for Atlanta, and he was an elite player. How is this guy not in the Hall of Fame, but Scott Rolen is? And this is where the Major League has it wrong. They've had it wrong for years. Lee Smith, he was a great relief pitcher. He played for like 25 years. He's in the Hall of Fame. I don't understand it. Baseball has this wrong. I'm not taking shots at Scott Rolen. Everybody thinks I hate Scott Rolen. I posted something on social media the other day saying that Scott Rolen, well-deserved, but shouldn't be the one that's going into Cooperstown this year. Jeff Kent is the best player on this list. It's not even close. This is a guy that deserves to be in Cooperstown. And because the writers didn't like him, and he didn't want to speak to the writers, and he didn't want to talk to the writers, and he hated the press, he is not in the Hall of Fame.
And it's a sport full of controversy, so you can't have some standards for some people and put him down on somebody like Jeff Kent. Yes, even if there was an inkling of thought that he might have done steroids, you just let David Ortiz in on the first ballot, no problem. Not that David Ortiz doesn't deserve it. I think he's probably the best designated hitter of all time. Whatever. Jeff Kent, among middle infielders, has the third most home runs of all time, only to Cal Ripken Jr. and Alfonso Soriano. And Alfonso Soriano was an outfielder towards the end of his career. Kent was too at certain points. Fine, I understand that. But still, Jeff Kent has an insane amount of home runs. He has more home runs than Scott Rolen does. And he's a middle infielder and couldn't get it in the Hall of Fame. He got barely over half the votes he needed for the Hall of Fame. And if you're using the standard of greatest defensive players at particular positions, which Rolen probably is the second or third best defensive third baseman ever. You could argue Nolan, I don't know, might be getting that point, and then Brooks Robinson's the best of all time. But Andruw Jones is arguably the best defensive center fielder of all time, and also has over 400 home runs. And you don't put him in. Why? It makes no sense. I'm with you where Rolen, I think, should get in, but not over Andruw Jones and not over a lot of these other guys that were listed, too. Todd Helton, Billy Wagner were both premier players at their positions for a long time.
I'm not a big Todd Helton fan.
I know you're not. But at the time, he still was considered a top
Do
five
I think he's better than Scott Rolen? Yes.
Yes. Scott Rolen only probably had certain years in his career where he's thought of as a top five third baseman. Great player, good playoff player, won a World Series with the Cardinals. Again, I'm not denying that he shouldn't get in, but the standard of using only defense should not go against Andruw Jones for that same reason. So I just think the Baseball Hall of Fame loves hypocrisy when it comes to it, and they try to avoid controversy, yet it's a part of your game. It's been a part of your game for history. Ty Cobb was the first guy ever got to get in the Hall of Fame, and he was betting on games and fixing games and all that and cheating in his own way, yet he has no problem getting in the Hall of Fame. So the standard that baseball has is absolutely crazy.
Bud Selig is in the Hall of Fame. Bud Selig, who actually was the commissioner when steroids was going around, and he allowed steroids to be used in baseball, and he is in the Hall of Fame. George Steinbrenner isn't. Why isn't George Steinbrenner in the Hall of Fame? He's the boss. He helped baseball. If it wasn't for George Steinbrenner, baseball wouldn't be what it is today. Money and TV deals wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for George Steinbrenner. The Yes Network was the first baseball channel ever created. Now every single baseball team has their own network. The MLB has their own network because of George Steinbrenner. But he's not in the Hall of Fame. And that's why these baseball writers are absolutely ridiculous. Horrible.